Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is the Steven now, and yes, we are back with another Batman 66 episode review, and today we are finally going to be reviewing Riddler's return in Season 2, though it will be drastically different this time. You want to know why? Well, let's get into the plot review, and then we get into our villain. We begin our episode with, surprisingly, at Wayne Manor, with Bruce and Dick and Aunt Harriet essentially doing a math problem. It's really fun, and it's nice we get to see a bit more of the Bruce family side that even most modern commons forget. Bruce adopts these kids to fill the void in his life, but also to become a father. In a way, even though on the show Dick is his ward, he still regards him kind of as a son figure, and Aunt Harriet as the loving aunt. That is then cut short when Alfred comes in and says that they are needed at the back front, though discreetly. They then go to the study, but Commissioner Gordon says to not meet them at police headquarters, but instead to meet him at a different location. When Batman and Robin arrive, they find out they are then surprised when Gordon O'Hara reveal it's actually a special luncheon commemorating Batman's essentially anniversary. Essentially, this is technically Batman's official birthday. The opening credits roll, and then we find out, of course, that said the special guest villain is the Riddler. But of course, we find out that something's definitely a bit more different with Riddler, and we'll find out more pretty much mostly to the end of the video. But back to the thing. Mayor Linseed is here along with Gotham's most prominent citizens to essentially give Batman an anniversary gift to congratulate him and thank him for his service of combating crime, and essentially marking the first time Batman appeared to bring law and order back to Gotham City. So we can assume that this has taken place years before, maybe 10 years, maybe Batman started fighting in the 50s, or maybe the beginning of the 60s. We're not entirely sure, but it's really fun that they're doing this. As it goes on, we find out that they pulled up so much money to be donated to some of essentially chosen charities as an anniversary gift. Like, all this money, and Batman gets to decide which money goes to these charities. Which we find out that know how much Bruce's Batman is. He's always donating to charity. And just as that's coming, they bring in a golden calf, which has some of this money to be donated, presented by Miss Anagram. Yes, you heard that right, Anagram, to present it. Just as Batman's standing up to give a speech, green smoke suddenly appears, and next thing you know, firemen start coming in through the window, and not just they take Miss Anagram, they also take the golden calf. Batman's noting there's very little flame to the smoke and wants to apprehend the firemen to ask what's going on. Just as most of them are met out the window, the last one reveals himself to be none other than the Riddler, this time played by a different actor. We'll find out more about him in the video, where he leaves off a riddle, well, a kind of riddle, or a clue of sorts, how he's saying that this money will get into needy hands, but check for a daily page for his next anniversary surprise. He then jumps out the window, and lands in a sort of net. I'm not sure if it is a net, but it kind of is. And he and his crew quickly make their way in the fire truck and make their escape. Batman and Robin follow, but because of a decoy fireman truck, they end up losing them in the traffic. Realizing that they can't stop the wrong one, a newspaper comes up and says, if you like the Gotham City Herald. Batman then takes it, realizing it's part of the Riddler's clue. Like he said, look for a daily page, such as the crossword puzzle of any average newspaper. Realizing the clue for Riddler's next move is in that crossword puzzle. We then cut to Riddler at his new hideout, a soon-to-be-open no-man jigsaw puzzle factory, where the Riddler and his crew are planning their next big caper, which involves them to eventually kill off Batman, but to also raise a few funds. We don't know what for yet. Just as that, he and his crew prepare to go for a banquet. Although, surprisingly, they're going to be dressed in, well, scuba divers scuba diver clothing. Batman and Robin are at the Batcave, sorting out the crossword puzzle, and just as when they think they've found out what they plan to do, Commissioner Gordon calls and says a bank under Matron Lane has burst and has flooded the vault. Batman realizes it's a banquet. They then go there to apprehend the Riddler and his crew, only to have an underwater fight. It's very silly, and it's also quite enjoyable. However, Batman and Robin end up losing the fight, as Riddler and his crew make their escape with some cash, and just as Batman and Robin get out, they leave behind yet another riddle. When does a man drown but still not wet? The Riddler and his crew are back at the hideout, essentially drying out and counting up the money. And eventually we get another person to add to the scheme. A professor slash doctor who comes in, a fellow genius, and it turns out that they're raising this money to pay this professor for him to hand over his demolecularizer. This will be done for both Riddler to achieve his criminal ends, but for the professor to get his revenge on the Gotham Science Institute, who do not want him to join purely the fact because he's a dropout. This is kind of upsetting that even in today, people will not take people seriously if they're a dropout. Like I said, being a dropout doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a bad life. Hell, my parents were dropouts, but they didn't drop out because they didn't like school. They dropped out because mostly to help out their families. Again, being a dropout doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a bad life or you're going to have an criminal life. Some dropouts become quite successful. And hell, even in the early school years, many kids dropped out of school because help families and managed to still have a very successful career. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. But yeah. Anyway, back. We then find out that Batman and Robin are about to miss one of their appointments where basically two marshmallows are going to be done of them for this cake, and we find out just how the Riddler is really getting on to Batman's nerves this time, as because of this caper, Batman is forgetting, such as he has to go for another appointment in Gotham Square Park for yet another chosen charity. However, Batman and Robin still yet to figure out the Riddler's latest riddle. When does a man drown, but still not wet? Just as they're then put on top of this giant cake, and just as that's happening, these guys plan to, create, giant mushrooms of their image to put on top of it. But we find out that the Riddler is there, and two chefs are actually his henchmen, and essentially the giant cake is essentially a trap. When it's released, they end up sinking in essentially quicksand in this cake. Riddler and his crew later make their escape, and Batman and Robin figure out the clue. The answer to the riddle was, of course, quicksand, but now they are stuck and are slowly sinking down in quicksand. That is our cliffhanger for this episode. Find out how they get out in the next one. Okay, many great things. I like the opening with Bruce, Dick, and Aunt Harriet, that little scene. It kind of shows like a little family side, which we don't really get to see that often, not just in the show, but even in comics in general with Bruce and his latest Robin. Alfred's little fun moments here, and I like how Chief O'Hara, Commissioner Gordon, and even Mayor Linseed all come together for this big anniversary to Batman. It really shows just like how much like Batman has really been around for, and it really goes to show just how dedicated Batman was to really bring law and order back and how respected he is. But of course, let's talk about the villain. Just as I said, the Riddler is back, and it's been long overdue since then. But like I said, this time it's different. You see, Frank Gorshin was the most popular actor on the show in Season 1 when he played his unique interpretation of the Riddler. However, this time things are drastically different. You see, there's many reasons why he didn't come back for Season 2. Touring schedules for his comedy act, or wanting more money. As a result, we had the Puzzler in a few episodes before, basically was a knockoff and a poor man's version of the Riddler. But of course, people wanted Riddler, so they decided to recast him. And as a result, an actor that was prominently big at the time and desperately needed work was, of course, John Astin, who of course famously played Gomez Addams in The Addams Family, making him the third actor from the Addams Family to appear on this show. Now, first off, when it comes to comparing John Astin's to Frank Gorshin's Riddler, he is favored quite unfavorably, because Frank Gorshin just owned the role of the Riddler. This one, well, to be fair, he did the role in his own way, using more subtle threats. And I appreciated how he never tried to imitate Frank Gorshin's laugh, which is perfect. And to be fair, he did the role in his own unique way. He did pretty reasonably well, in my opinion. And I also admit, the one thing I've always appreciated with John Astin's Riddler is he has the Riddler cane. Something that I'm really upset that Frank Gorshin never had the chance to use. And for me, I will admit, this version is different. He's more energetic, more charismatic, but there's subtleties of villainy and of evil and darkness that is only subtle. For me, I felt that John Astin really played to his strengths with this role. Now, with that aside, do I personally feel that he's better than Frank Gorshin? No, Frank Gorshin was this show's Riddler, but John Astin did his own unique and different interpretation, playing to his actor's strengths and making the role his own. And that's the thing, when any actor takes over a role from the previous, make it your own, don't copy. Try and do something different. And I think that what he did was pretty good and pretty memorable. Batman's Anniversary feels like a long time coming, not just in the title, but the fact that they got the villain that everyone had been craving for this entire season. I enjoyed this episode. It's not in personal top 10, but I have lots of enjoyment with this, and I can't wait to see what we go with the second part. And there we have it. That was Batman's Anniversary. Join us next time when we review the Riddler's Controversy. So until then, tune in next time for the same Steven hour, the same Steven channel. Ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.